We know change is inevitable, and big life or career shifts can shake your sense of identity. So, how do you handle the chaos of change, especially if you're a perfectionist living in a perfectionist world? In this episode, my guest expert, Marcy Bullock, explains what she calls life quakes and why they feel so destabilizing. By the end of this conversation, you'll walk away with tools to ground yourself in change, reconnect with your values, and move forward with more clarity and self trust. So, listen in. Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. In every episode, I'll help you challenge outdated definitions of success, discover practical tools and strategies for growth without compromising your well being. I am so glad you've joined me. Let's reimagine what's possible together. My guest today has spent over 3 decades rewiring how people see themselves and helping them perform from that new place. Marcy Bullock is an award winning speaker and director of professional development at North Carolina State's College of Engineering. She's designed and delivered more than 150 professional development courses, and her belief is simple: high performance culture starts with high growth people. Today, we're going deep on life shifts, identity changes, and what it really takes to show up as your best self. Marcy, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Amna. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
So, for the rest of the episode, it's Amna, and that's it's all good. And I'm going to just jump right in. But before we do that, I am very interested in knowing what drew you personally to this work around identity and life shifts. Was there a moment, a season, something that happened that made you think, this is what I need to be talking about?
Yes, that's a great question because my career spans working with students and alumni and hiring managers over about 30 years. And so most of my career has been in higher education, but as many of my graduates from the university go off in the work world, it becomes they're adults now. We're working on adulting when I'm teaching them, and then they go off and they get to their entry level job, their mid career job, and even their senior career job over that 30-year period. And what excited me the most that drew me to this is this whole notion of helping them redefine their identity as they go. Because you remember back when you were in college, you've been a student your whole life. And I know you went to a lot of education, even beyond college for medical school and residency, but you're learning, and that is your identity. You're in the classroom, you're getting graded, you're achieving. And then all of a sudden, someone says, guess what? After all of this, you need to figure out what you're going to do with your life. So I've always said that I have devoted my life to helping other people figure out what to devote theirs to. Because when you think about it, the career path that we spend more time with our colleagues, our coworkers, our boss than our loved ones, because it is typically, I hate to tell my college students this, it's like wah, wah, but it's typically one third of your waking hours you're going to be in your professional identity. And so that makes up so much of their quality of life. And so that's really what drew me to this work, was helping people understand who they are so they could make choices that would align with their values, pursue careers, and then move forward in their life. And it sounds super cheesy, but have a happy life.
So much in there that we can unpack, right? Because I've seen you in action and I see how the students absolutely love your presence and how you just sort of disarm them, and you are providing that wisdom and guidance and definitely noticing all those rapid life transitions that are happening. I'm curious to know this term that I had not thought of before, but you mention it, a life quake. What does it actually feel like when you are in one, and what is this term?
Yes. Okay. So I'm from Southern California. So I've actually been in an earthquake before where you lose your footing. You are feeling so disoriented because your whole world is literally shaking. So I coined that term for humans that go through so many transitions and transformations in their time on the planet. And I always say you have one chance to leave your footprint on the planet. What will it be? Well, it's going to be a compilation of all these different chapters. So when we think of the first life quake, the biggest one has to do with going from student to professional. That shakes you up. And you said, what does it feel like? I like to think of it. I've worked with so many students at four different universities around the planet, from Brisbane, Australia to NC State, as you mentioned. And it doesn't matter where I am on the globe, everybody is trying to figure out how to get their footing. So have you ever stepped on a Bosu ball at the gym?
Yes.
Okay, so you know what that feels like. It's just not stable. It's not flat ground. You're kind of wobbling a little bit. And there are so many different life quakes that we go through. If you think about it, that first one, it's like, even when you're in college, your brain is not fully developed and you're moving into so much independence. Then you get your first job and someone says, okay, you're a blank. And even if someone says, what do you do? In our country, and it's a little different in other cultures, we'll say our career. We'll say, oh, I work at a university. I'm an educator. I'm a podcaster, whatever it is. If you ask somebody in Denmark, where I visited last summer, they'll say, I'm a cyclist, even though they don't get paid to cycle, because it's like part of their identity and it's part of just their life. It's not necessarily their career. So you're in your first job, then you might lose your job. And all of a sudden, that's a huge life quake because I've worked with people, I do career coaching on the side from NC State, and even with my students and my coaching clients. I had one who worked at a very famous company that I think we all know because we love the convenience of getting things delivered within the next 24 hours. And I will not name any names, but this particular client got a Slack message one day and it said, you are no longer our talent acquisition manager. Everything was cut off. She did not know who she was. All of a sudden, she was in the life quake. So, it can be getting laid off from a job. There's so many different things. It can be losing a loved one. I mean, this is something that will happen to us. It can be ending a relationship. It can even be adding a new family member, a new baby. I just had a granddaughter that joined my family, and I'm watching my daughter go through that life quake of, I had so much independence and now all of a sudden, I'm in charge of taking care of another human. And then some of the other big ones can be when you're an empty nester. And I know, Amna, you're a ways off from that, but it's going to happen to you. And you're going to be like, wait, this is supposed to be amazing. But some people really struggle with who they are when they're not 100% in their free time taking care of little ones. And then, of course, retirement. I mean, that's a huge one. And I've gone through every one of these. And I don't even use the word retire anymore. I use rewire because you are, and you said that in your intro, rewiring your brain, and you just have more discretionary time to do what you want. So that's what a life quake is. I didn't think if I forgot any. Can you think of any other big life quakes you've had that I forgot?
I feel like within those major life quakes, there are a lot of like micro quakes, if for lack of a better word, that might be happening. But it's true, like stepping back and really reflecting at what we go through. And I love that example that you mentioned of the cyclist in Denmark and identifying as, and it's almost like what's coming to my mind is also how we tie our worthiness to our careers, and then all these shifts are happening, and it almost feels like with every shift, your worthiness is up for debate.
Absolutely, because you define yourself by that career. There's even a term for it called workism,
Mm.
where everything about your value is related to your professional identity. And it's very seductive, right? Because everybody wants to talk to you and they want your opinion and you need to write back on the email. And I remember when I left one job, I thought, oh gosh, all these people are my friends. And, we all have baby showers together and celebrate the wonderful milestones. And then when I left, I didn't get the invitation. And I didn't feel like I kind of got my feelings hurt. Like I thought I was part of this clique. I mean, everybody as a human, as a tribal being, we want to be part of a group. And not only does our worth get associated with it, but also just feeling like we're a part of something. And when that ends, it can be really hard to go through it.
That was a very powerful example, almost like this worthiness tied with also the being part of like this unit, like you mentioned in the first half, being part of the work family and what that does to you. And then of course all of a sudden the family is no longer your family.
Yeah, but I even don't like that term work family.
Mhm.
People use it all the time, and you're exactly right. They're not your family. It's like my work wife, whatever these terms are. No. If you lose a family member, here's what's going to happen. They're going to send you flowers. If you got hit by a truck tomorrow, they'll send your family flowers and then they'll re-advertise your job. You are getting paid to do a job and they're not your family.
For anybody who's like wondering how to gather the courage to set some boundaries, I think this amount of radical clarity, keeping in mind the perspective of life shifts, it can be really powerful the way you just phrased that. Yeah. So you have this concept which also intrigued me as I was like looking at your profile and from prior conversations that we've had, the me search instead of research. Tell me about that. Where does it come from and what changes when someone actually does it?
Right. So we always think about researching things when we're students. Like, I need to learn more about this. I'm going to study it. I'm going to go to the library and read everything about it. I'm going to type it into my AI and get all these different things out from my prompt. But we never take time to internally look at ourselves. I mean, I say never, but it's unusual. Like with my college students, they spend more time planning spring break than they do the rest of their life. And the rest of their life is big. So, me search means going inside. And that can be challenging. You have to look at who you are, you have to unravel all the different pieces of you. And it can be what's important to you, like your values. It can be what you enjoy and when time flies by and your passions and curiosities. It can be what you're good at. And sometimes we're our worst critic. And so we don't always pay attention to our competencies and skills. But when we find an intersection of those three categories, your values, your interests, and your skills, this is where the sweet spot is, where people actually feel engaged if it's their career path, but only 20% of people, based on a Gallup poll, are actually engaged at work. And that to me is just horrible. 80% of people are just looking at their clock going, when can I live my life? Rather than feeling like that career or what they're spending a third of their waking hours doing is meaningful. So that's what I think about me search. It just means stopping and asking yourself some questions. And actually, one of my favorite activities to do on this, and any of your listeners can do this me search on their own. You don't have to take an assessment and pay for it, although there are lots of them out there that I use, but it's just journaling for a
Mm.
regular week of life. 1 week of life, you write down what energized you, when time flew by, and what drained you. And honestly, the juice in that lemon is after a week, you look at all the things on the left side, which were what strengthened you. It can be as simple as I helped my mom tile the floor and I felt so accomplished. What drained you? Oh, I was sitting in this chemistry class and time was just dragging and I thought it would never end. And at the end of the week, you ask this simple question: what did I learn about myself?
I love that very tangible piece of advice and also like the three components that build up this me search because it is true. So many of us we have just I don't know if I should use the term quiet quitting here, but a lot of the times we are zoned out of our life. We are watching the clock go by. And one of my all time favorite time management books has been 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Berkman. And of course, I love his newsletter as well, which is The Imperfectionist. The title of the newsletter is that. But the premise of the book is the concept of finitude or finitude, however we pronounce it. But like we have a finite time on this planet, and what are you doing with that very precious time that you have? And so when you get that radical clarity, like, yeah, I get about 4,000 weeks. And if I'm lucky and I live to the age of 96, I get 5,000 weeks on this planet, makes it so radically clear should I go and I should engage in my me search? Should I do that journaling? It becomes very, very quickly clear instead of like trying to like wait for time to pass by, or in my case, in the case of many high achievers, particularly high achieving women, think that you're a unicorn and you can just magically fit so much in such a little span of time. So I think I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but um, would love your thoughts on that reflection.
I think that reflection is so important. I mean, we start our life with our first breath. And as I mentioned, new baby joining my family, I got to be a part of seeing that. And then we end our life with our last breath. And that in between space, what are we going to do with it? It's a finite number of breaths you take. And I liked how you put it in the number of weeks, actually. But we tend to be in the grind, feeling overwhelmed, struggling, suffering, almost drowning. I see that in so many of my students. And that's not how life is meant to be. So we can slow down. We could actually slow our breathing down, balance our nervous system so we don't feel fight or flight all day. And we can live more peacefully and joyfully.
Oof. So you mentioned students, and I know you're surrounded by students. And the one question that comes up every time there's somebody in training, whatever high level training that is, and I get this question a lot from individuals in law, medicine, and now engineering, we're going to talk about it. Is this okay? I'm in training right now. I do not have that level of autonomy. I can't do much. Like I literally have to suck it up and I just have to go through this. And so how do you invite moments of like, no, you do have some autonomy, you do have control. Here are things that you can do versus what you can't do, versus this the dread of I am deep in this degree and now I feel like I'm suffocating. I just don't know what to do.
Yes. So emotional health is such an important part of your journey as a student. And as you mentioned, I am working with a lot of high achieving engineering PhD students. And you and I got to partner on a session with them. And we talked about imposterism and we talked about perfectionism. And my big thing with them is just normalizing the struggle and letting them hear from each other that we're all in it together. No one is alone, and it is okay to set your capacity limits. Many times they've never heard that before, and they think that they should be underwater all the time. And by having other people remind them of that and normalizing the fact that we are allowed to live in the moment, we are allowed to tell our advisor, no, we cannot take that on, that gives them permission.
I am going to repeat two of the things that you just said. You said it's okay to set your capacity limits, which is amazing. And the word that came to my mind, which is the second I want to share, is that normalizing the struggle. A lot of that, the word is witnessing, because a lot of times we feel that our suffering is unwitnessed, especially when a lot of it is academic suffering, which is real suffering that you have to go through to get to the other side. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And now we're going to get into a lot of wonderful, detailed tips. What advice would you give somebody in this season of change? Tips, thoughts? Let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So, we're talking about big life transitions and we're talking about the shakeup. So, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we need to grieve the loss of what we are letting go of. So, if it is letting go of the freedom or the job or the marriage or the loved one or whatever. I forgot the other one was health. That's a big one. That can be a really big life quake is you get some kind of diagnosis, right? So you oftentimes don't have control over that. And I literally just did a talk yesterday at a retirement home where someone came up to me afterwards and I was talking about Encore chapter for retirees. And she said, I got this diagnosis. I was an artist and I have now a different disease where I can't see and I can't do my art. So she had to grieve the loss of letting go of her identity as an artist and then go through what I call the messy middle. That's just the part that really is unpleasant and uncomfortable. And that is feeling all of those emotions, recognizing them, and labeling them and realizing that, like, I feel sad right now. And maybe crying is going to help me to process through that. But we all get through the messy middle. And she now has a new interest that does not involve artistic ability because she has a limitation now. And she was so excited that we had a chance to talk about that and other people got to learn about that. And that's the start of the new chapter. So I think my tips are really just to rethink any negative self-talk. Like if you were saying to yourself, I'm no one without my sight and I can't be an artist anymore, then you release, I think it's the old recordings that are telling you you're not worthy without your eyesight. You release it. You let that go, and then you receive the self compassion, which I know you and I are self compassion junkies. It's okay to give yourself the grace and to realize that you're going through a tough time and it's normal for you to be struggling at this time. But then the final one, and these are all ours. So it's rethink, release, receive. And the last one, drum roll, is restart. So you get a chance to think about who you are now and what you have now and what you can do with what you have now. But you can't skip to restart. You have to go through the difficult, uncomfortable part, which I know no one wants to do.
That was really wonderfully articulated. And I have to agree because most of us want to gloss over the messy middle and get to the end and also not really like honor our journey. Like healing is messy. Healing does not involve like, here are the 3 tips, tricks, and hacks. And I feel like with our ever diminishing focus and attention spans and the quick dopamine hits that we are now programmed to believe that all healing and all growth happens in the same way, that is going to be in a very short social media reel that just pops up and then that's it. Like, that's it. I need to have all the answers figured out. So, a lot of what I am getting from what you're sharing in these tips is like the permission to feel what I'm feeling and the expanse that comes with it, the openness and cutting like there is no rigidity, like releasing that rigidity and allowing that space for creativity, curiosity, just such as the example that you gave of a human pivoting from vision, really heavily relying on her vision for what gives her joy to then finding another passion and hobby. And I also want to say congratulations on your grandbaby.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're super excited, and I appreciate that. But no, I totally agree with you, and I think this aligns so much with all the work you do on perfectionism because it shapeshifts. And if we use kind of that analogy again of the earthquake, perfectionism will shape shift based on where you are in the process. So in college, it can be like, I have to prove myself. And in your first job, it can be, I can't make a mistake. And then when you retire, it can be something like, my worth was tied to productivity. So I think it's really important to label those and realize that it is impossible for you to do everything right all the time.
It's impossible for you to do everything right all the time. This is a very important point to highlight. And speaking on perfectionism, and thank you for giving a nod to that journey. I've been on it for unmasking perfectionism and asking many of the amazing guests that have been on the podcast how they have interacted with this concept of perfectionism. So I would love to hear your experience and reflections, particularly when it comes to perfectionism, whether they are personal, professional, through the lens of the intersection where perfectionism and identity shifts exist.
Absolutely. So when we're looking at the intersection, it's almost like you realize the transition is here to transform you, but it's not a test. So
Mm.
that's the big thing I think of is you're not being tested and no one is grading you on this. You are a human being living a human experience. We are all fallible. So if you're focusing always on people pleasing and beating yourself up when you make mistakes, you're missing out on so many learning opportunities. That's where we grow the most. That's where we transform the most. So just to remind ourselves, we're not being graded on these transitions. We need to take time to slowly go through them and we're going to get to that new chapter.
I wish somebody had said this to me a couple of years ago. It would have been so helpful. And I feel sometimes that I am actually being graded every single day and I have to recenter and remind myself.
Right. I know. It's like we have to recenter ourselves. And that's why I love the work that you're doing, Amna, because you're bringing in so many people to address this issue, to just remind us in bold, all cap, underline. We are tall toddlers, right? We're just really tall, but we're still carrying around all the baggage that we had that we grew up with. And everybody is so complicated. Like, we're not just an AI, we're not an algorithm. We are human beings and we're fallible.
We're human beings and we're fallible. So I'm also double clicking on that, thinking, was there a student or somebody that you can think of in particular comes to mind? Being surrounded by PhD students currently as well, they really struggled with perfectionism. And then we're talking about identity shifts or any of the other clients who have helped. Any particular points of resistance or anything noteworthy that you want to share?
I have one student who took my class, and I won't forget her because she actually was a student who came in thinking, I've always been the best of the best. And then, we know the weeding out period where it's like, wait, now all of a sudden I'm in a really big pond and I am not the most important person here. And when we talked about this, it was a gradual process of understanding that's okay if I'm not always number one, because I realized that my worth is tied to so many different things. But that's hard to get to because most people coming in to school believe all their worth is the grades. And, I thought I wanted to be the doctor from the time I was 5. Yes, I've seen that multiple times. They get in chemistry, they fail. It's the weed out class, and they are absolutely lost. But once they do that work, that me search on, but who am I beyond this? And I realized when I did my values assessment, creativity came up big for me. And then we look into opportunities where that can actually become a vocation, where you can use your creativity, you can get paid to do it, and you can live a very fulfilling life. That's where I think the bright spot comes in.
Oh, that is such a beautiful reframe. It's the cruelty of our time that we have consistently tied our worth to rigid, inhumane, inflexible numbers, and like the consumption just never ends, and the goalposts keep moving. And so it is a point of quiet reflection, especially as we're talking about identity shifts, is stepping away and just looking at all of it and saying what truly is the point of it. Because I remember I was asked that question, which is very close to the me search question that you're talking about. My own coach asking me, who are you if you're not a clinician? Who are you if you're not a doctor? And I struggled to answer that question, closely followed by this question, which I'm doing better at it when I'm asked, what do you do for fun, or like impromptu questions? Because my impression management just goes like, I don't know what I'm going to answer, like the fun questions on podcasts. I don't know what to do with that. But what do you do for fun, really? And my answer used to be like sleep, because I was so exhausted and depleted at that time. But those questions, they are really a nod to a deeper problem that all my time personally was just focused on output, impression management, how do things feel and seem to the outside world. And as I went through my life quakes, including health, including the academic journey, including the entrepreneurial journey, it was really the me search has served me so much more than the other items.
Yeah, I love your example of that because we've talked about that before where everything is being measured. And you're right, the goalpost. I got this great job. Now I need the promotion. And it just never ends where you feel like I finally got there. You're always raising the bar and it can feel quite overwhelming, and you're constantly needing validation. And so I do jokingly just remind people like validation is for parking. And you internally can feel good about what you've done if you did your best and you are leading with kindness and you care about other people. To me, those are really the pillars.
Validation is for parking. Love that. And the other phrase that's coming to my mind, which I have read somewhere and I can't quite remember, but enough is a decision. I have had to say that over and over again. How is today going to be a great day? It's kind of like a decision you have to decide at the end of the day. Otherwise, the glass half full, half empty conversation continues to go on and on. But this is so refreshing to hear. And I love that part of the conversation that we're having. What this does is it validates and normalizes the struggle, as you had shared earlier. Is there anything else you would like to add to the amazing pearls that you've shared so far that's on your mind? And you were like, gosh, I wish somebody who's listening right now and they're really grappling with that identity shift, life shifts. It feels like an earthquake happening right now, the life quake. I wish they knew this.
I'm going to go back to just re-emphasizing the importance of looking at who you are. So this part of it is uncomfortable for a lot of people. Is almost like ripping the Band-Aid off and saying, okay, this is going to take me some time to really say what I want my legacy to be. And when you think about it from that standpoint and you work backwards, you're going to have the goals that will help keep moving you forward, but in a way that is not debilitating and is not suffering nonstop.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your pearls of wisdom with us today, Marcy. How can my audience learn more about your impactful work and just connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find me on my website, which is if they just put in the search bar, Marcy Lee Bullock Coaching. I do career coaching and I also do presentations. So that's a great way to reach out to me. I'm also on LinkedIn if you type my name in there. And I would love to follow up with any of your listeners.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well-being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramneshabir.com where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving.